In virtually all of your projects, you're going to need to transform objects. By transform, I mean move the object, rotate the object, or scale the object. Now to do that, we need to first select the object, and we can do that by left clicking on the object. Our selected object will have an orange outline like you can see on your screen. Now, what I have right now, I've selected the move gizmo, and you can see that we've got arrows that correspond to the different axes in our 3D viewport. If you're not getting that, you can click on the move gizmo up here, and then we can click on one of those arrows and we can move our object up and down on that corresponding axis. If you don't like what you did, you moved in the wrong direction, before you let go of the mouse button, you can press escape and it'll cancel that transformation. You can also notice that we have these small square objects in our gizmo, and these correspond to different planes. For example, the green square corresponds to the Z and the X plane. If I click on that and drag, I can move my object anywhere in that plane. And it's green because the Y-axis is perpendicular to that plane and is green. Likewise, if I grab the blue one, I can move around here in the X and the Y plane. Pretty useful. If I click on the rotate gizmo, you get something similar. This time we can rotate on different axes. Press escape again to cancel and rotate on a different axis. Now you'll notice here there's this white circle around it. We can grab that and kind of rotate however we want. That's generally pretty hard and a little confusing to do. We can then come down to the scale gizmo, and that's going to give us a similar looking gizmo, but in this case we have squares or cubes at the end of our axes instead of arrows. If I grab one of those, it'll allow us to scale the object in different directions. And likewise, just like with the move gizmo, you can see the little colored squares. If I grab one of those, it'll allow us to scale it in different axes. There's a few other really useful pieces to our transformations. If I start to move my object and then hold Control, my object will snap to the grid or lattice points. And that's going to work for our move, rotate, and our scale gizmos. The gizmos on the left are great, but Blender absolutely loves hotkeys. So all of our transformations have hotkeys. If we push G for grab, we can move the object around. If we press R, we can rotate. If we press S, we'll scale. Now, when we do that, we don't have immediate control of which axes we're working on. So if I press G and then X, I'm going to move it along the X axis. Likewise, if I press Y, I'm going to move it along the Y axis. Same thing works for rotate. If I want to rotate around the Z axis, I can press R and then Z, and I rotate around that axis. Now, sometimes you want to move something in 2 dimensions or not in a particular dimension. So again here, if I go to the scale tool, and maybe here I want to scale in the X and the Y plane, I can press Shift Z. And what that does is I scale in every direction except for the Z direction. And again, that works with the move and the rotate transforms. So sometimes you want to be very precise on how much you're moving something or how much you're rotating something. I encounter this a lot when we're rotating something. So let's go to our rotation tool, and let's say I want to rotate on the X axis. Now I can just move this around with the mouse, and sometimes that's good enough, but sometimes we want to be very particular how much we rotate it. So for example, if I type 45, I'm going to rotate 45 degrees. If I then press enter, it's going to save that rotation. So if I do it again, press R to rotate, X to rotate on the X axis, then I press -45. I go back to my original rotation. And again, that's going to work with our scaling, our moving, and our rotation gizmos. So there's a lot going on when we're transforming objects in Blender. This is something that we're going to be doing all the time, and it's worth knowing how to do it with the gizmos and the hotkeys.